Hello, my friend. This is Clyde. Stay in your lane. Galatians chapter 2 and verse 20 says, I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. I confess that it is not difficult for me to say this to you, stay in your lane. That statement might mean different things to different persons. There are lanes on the highways and roadways that make for safe driving. There are lanes in a swimming pool to direct swimmers and competitors away from collision and interference. The professional is higher according to his qualification, and for some people, they go on to become renowned for their expertise in certain areas. In the home, some men are poor in domestic areas, but they are handy. They can repair the car. They can fix things around the house. For me, my mind goes to the world of track and field. It is so beautiful to see young and talented people running on the track and following the rule to stay in their lane. It is a strong and definitive order, and to deviate, to come out of your lane, can incur strong penalties and pain. Well, let us talk about staying in your lane as a child of God. The writer of the text says the very same thing to us, but makes it about himself. Two things are clear in the text. Firstly, the writer is a devout follower of Jesus. Notice he identifies with being crucified. Obviously, he was not crucified in reality, but don't miss the greater truth. He is saying that the old person that he used to be is dead. That character was crucified with Christ. The active and reckless sinner died when he accepted Christ's death as his way to life. As a result, he's now living a different life. When you look at him, he's in a lane, a new lane, because he has re-entered life, but this time he has Christ living inside of him. Christ living in you means that God has moved into your life and taken full control. Well, if you let him do that. Funny how we never see what goes on inside the cockpit, but the plane flies. It is highly unlikely we know who are members of the flying team, but we believe there are some people in the cockpit who know what they are doing, and they can fly this machine from one place to the next and deliver passengers so they can go about their business. The pilot is not the flight attendant, and the flight attendant is not the pilot. So the flight is successful because the persons in charge did what was necessary. He or she stayed in their lane and continued to serve as expert pilots. The writer made a decision to serve the Christ who was crucified, and the most pronounced consequence of that decision is that Christ now lives inside of him. From that position, Christ directs him to stay in his lane, the lane that is designated for him as a child of God. Staying in this lane will ensure that you don't go back to the former life before you met Jesus. Staying in your lane requires commitment on your part, a commitment to listen to the voice of the man Jesus who is living inside of you. That in itself is an exciting adventure. He directs us in every area of our life onwards, and as long as you stay in the lane that God has brought you into, you will be successful. The second piece that I observe is that he is living a new and different life. The writer is doing so not because he sat down and strategically determined how he was going to live like a child of God. Rather, he says that he is living this new life by faith in Jesus. This is getting exciting. A life of faith is a life that is being influenced by a conviction that this way of life is the best, and that comes out in how you perform on the world stage for children as children of God. Firstly, to think that Christ is living inside of you takes faith, but once you're doing so by faith, it makes a world of difference. Abraham was one such person. One day God appeared to him and told him he was going to be led to a land which God will give his descendants. Now at that time, he and his wife Sarai did not have any children. And so if you were Abraham and heard about life for the children, you would be surprised. But he chose to live by faith. In fact, it was nearly 25 years later that the first descendant came onto the scene. Abraham lived by faith in God, in what God said, and so it came to pass. To live your life by the faith you place in Christ, who was crucified, is to make you become a winner. A race has 8 athletes getting ready to run the sprint event. Usually the favorite or the ones most likely to win have been assigned middle lanes, while the extreme lanes go to the slowest runners from the semi-final stage. But I've seen races with people in the outer lane who come from nowhere and win the race. This athlete finished the race as a winner, and the custodian reports that the runner did not violate the rules of running. Had that athlete crossed lanes and interfered with the runner in the other lane, he would be in line to be disqualified. Get the point? The writer says that staying in his lane requires him to trust God in every aspect of this new life, and he was assured of ending strong as a child of God who stayed in his lane. Are you living life by the faith in Christ who was crucified and who has now taken over your life? Christ himself is your new boss. This is a marked outcome, and it all hinges on the faith that the writer places. Faith in God. That is the secret of staying in your lane. Make it all about Jesus in your life and stay in your lane. You are well on the way to a bright future in the Lord. My friend, if you have any questions about this message or you have something that you would love to share, please go ahead and send me an email at friendofclyde@gmail.com.